is emotional sobriety. And, in order to have emotional sobriety, the first thing, you've got to get physically sober first. You've got to get physically sober from whatever addiction that you have. And if you have multi-addictions, you need to get sober from all of them and not trade off other addictions, because you cannot get emotionally sober while practicing an addiction of any kind, I don't think. So, the first stage of recovery is to put down the bottle, lock up the medicine cabinet. If you're a prescription drug addict, get the drugs out of the house. If you're an overeater, put the fork down. If you're an anorexic, pick the fork up. Start feeding yourself appropriately. So it's about getting stable with the addiction. And if that's all there was to it, as hard as that is, that'd be pretty simple. I mean, it's not easy, but to stop an addiction, what you do is you stop using an addiction. And like I said, if that's all there was to it, that wouldn't be, you could do it. Go to treatment, get detox, get off the drug, but you can do it and be completely miserable if you don't treat the mental and emotional side. And so there are people who I've been around a long time in 12-step programs, over 50 years, and you see people that are what we call sick sober in AA. They'll go to AA, they are not drinking, but a lot of times they haven't really worked the program, worked the steps. The steps is the way to emotional sobriety. You do those 12 steps and it'll march you up face to face with the God of your understanding. One of the things that I recommend for alcoholics to do in AA for emotional sobriety is go to Al-Anon. Al-Anon's different than AA, and I'd recommend every alcoholic to go to Al-Anon. But anyway, I've said that, now let's get on. So emotional sobriety is the ability to learn to live life on life's terms without our emotions running the show. That's a pretty tall order, isn't it? It is about emotional sobriety is the ability to live life without our feelings, our emotions running the show. And so it stands to reason, if emotional sobriety is important, and that it is about feelings and emotions, that emotional side, it's best that we address it. And I think one of the one that addressed it the most is the one that gave us the information about Alcoholics Anonymous and wrote the book and started the program, and that's Bill W. The first 16 years of his sobriety, he stayed pretty much. He was glad to be sober. He was glad not to be drinking. But there was times that nothing had changed. He was still irritable, restless, and discontented at times. And then 16 years sober, I think he wrote one of his very best pieces of literature, 16 years sober. Because 16 years sober, he was miserable. Now, he didn't want to drink. God had removed that obsession to drink from Bill's brain, and it never returned. But his behavior was there, and his emotional, he would get drunk on his emotions. And so in the letter, he wrote it, entitled it Depression, and he was depressed. He didn't want to drink, 16 years sober, but the thoughts of suicide would come to his mind. He wanted to kill himself because living was hard, and he didn't know anything about how to deal with his feelings. How he dealt with them before was not to have any to drink over. So what he realized in writing that paper on depression, her own emotional sobriety, and we call it stage 2 recovery, is that his dependence on everything outside of himself, other than the God of his understanding, all of that dependence had to be broken. The dependence on his wife, he had depended on Lois for everything. And she gave it to him. She performed. She took care of him. And I've often wondered, and I have read Lois's, books in her life and all, but I've just wondered, she just loved and adored Bill. And, she is the one that actually, Bill started Al-Anon. He knew that she had gotten as sick as he had, or sicker, and that he knew that she needed help. And, when he was walking out to go to his AA meeting, she took off her high heel shoe and threw it and hit him in the head. And she said, "Damn you and your AA meetings." Because before Bill got sober, it was just the two of them. The two of them. They were just all wrapped up together. And she was his savior. She was going to take care of him. And she, was going to get him sober. Well, no one can get another person sober. They can't, particularly a non-alcoholic. And she was even a little jealous of his AA and his AA buddies, because they were doing for him what she couldn't do. So, but it was a long time before Bill got any emotional sobriety. And so emotional sobriety, the physical has to come first. We must get, physically sober. But the first thing, after we put down the drink or the drug or whatever, the first part of emotional sobriety is self-forgiveness. Number one, self-forgiveness. How many of us, whether we are codependents or whether we're addicts of any sort, how many of us have felt so guilty about our addiction and how we have treated other people? And if you've treated other people bad, or you have had, problems like that, and you don't feel a little guilt, you might want to check that out. Because all guilt is saying, I have done something out of my value system and I feel bad about that. So the number one thing in getting emotional sobriety is self-forgiveness. Noticing that feelings don't rule us. We're going to have to look at our feelings, but not always do what our feelings tell us to do. That's the beauty of a 12-step program and having sponsors. It is about going and checking out with someone else before you go off and, say something to someone. I know I used to call my sponsor and I would have it all figured out, what I was going to tell RL about his drinking, or tell my kids, or what. It was usually about RL. And so I would call her and I'd have this plan and I'd run it through her, and it sounded so good to me. And after she heard it, she'd say, "How did you come up with that? Where did you get that? Don't do that. Don't do it. And before you even think about doing it, call me again. Do not act on your thinking." It's our thinking that gets us in trouble. And so, we have to, regardless of the addiction, we have to learn to regulate our emotions, because early in recovery, those emotions are just up and down, up and down, up and down, up and down. And how we regulate them is learning one thing, how to love the people, places, and things that make us angry. That's one of the things. And if you want to know how to love unconditionally, go to a 12-step meeting. Go to a 12-step meeting. You walk in the door, they don't care who you are, where you came from, how much money you have, who you slept with, they don't care. They do not care. What they care is about their sobriety and their recovery, and how they're going to keep it is by helping that newcomer walk through the front door. And they're going to be there for you, and they're going to give away what was freely given to them. And they're going to make you feel at home instantly. So learn to regulate your emotions. You know, our emotions can be up and down and all over everywhere. And then number 3 is acceptance. Accept that we are fallible human beings and let go of the need to control. If you want to know the bottom line of any addiction, it's control. And what I see with many people, once they get clean and sober, their codependency comes out in full. I mean, even, you know, I don't care whether you're alcoholic, what you are, if you don't look at your codependency and, you know, accept the letting go of expectations that you have of other people, places, and things. Other people are not put on the face of the earth to make you feel better or to do your bidding or to take care of you. You know, people are put on the face of the earth to live their own lives. You go live yours and let them live theirs, and you come back together and you celebrate. You know, that's how these couples that, and I love working with couples, but couples that just stay right together all the time, and don't have any outside activity, you know, and that can happen to families. That can happen to anyone where you just stay all cloaked together. You know, you don't break out of that togetherness. That makes a pretty poor package sometimes. You know, what I tell couples is, you know, make that commitment to each other, but then go out of that coupleship and have some experiences. Like one might go off and learn how to paint. The other one might go off and do volunteer work. And at the end of the day, you come back and you bring that excitement to that coupleship. Any family, any coupleship is going to get, worn out and dried up if you just depend on each other, you know. So, you know, go out and, you know, meet other people, get excited about something, bring that back into the coupleship, bring that back into your family. So, acceptance is, I kind of get off of the subject here, is figuring out what is my business and what is not my business. I mean, it is so simple. You know, accepting, is it my business to tell my grown kids what to do, or is it their business to tell me what to do, or is it my business to tell, I used to think I was put on the face of the earth to tell alcoholics what to do on a daily basis. Thank God I found Al-Anon and quit doing that, you know, and they were pretty lost for, the alcoholics in my life were pretty lost for a while when I first got to Al-Anon, because they didn't even know, my husband didn't even know where he kept his underwear. I laid his clothes out and all of that. But anyway, I was one of those caretaking type of Al-Anons, and I took good care of him until I got to Al-Anon. And, you know, so anyway, learn what is our business and what is not our business, and stay in our hula hoop. You know, our hula hoop is our own boundary. Stay in our own boundary. And when you want to reach outside that boundary, do it with love. Do it with, you know, go give somebody something, whether it's a family member, or go do something for someone that they maybe need something, you know, and that gets you out of yourself. That's what emotional sobriety is getting out of ourselves. And then number 5, and I've already talked about it, but it's make connections, make relationships without manipulation or codependency. I took all the fun out of it, didn't I? If you can't have a relationship and manipulate them and get them to do what you want them to do, or you can't be dependent on them, or they can't be dependent on you, what else is there? I'll tell you, there's a lot of life to live when you have healthy relationships. Know where you stop and someone else starts. So part 3 is some of the signs that we see in second stage recovery. And we see this with people that are in sobriety. They are, they've laid down that primary drug of choice. And thank God for it. I mean, I'm not putting that down. Thank God that the alcoholics quit drinking. Thank God that the drug addict has quit, And so, and the overeater or the undereater has found help. But one of the things that in sobriety, signs of that we need second stage recovery, and I would see this in working with strictly alcoholics and drug addicts years ago. I would see them pick up another substance. They would get into overeating. You go to a lot of AA meetings and there'll be on the table will be candy bars spread around. They have to have something. It's that hand to mouth. And right at first, early sobriety, that's not such a bad deal. It's not, but after a while, it can become another substance. It can become you're substituting one for the other. And when I say right at first, when a person first starts sobering up from alcohol, of course we used to detox, and we don't detox them anymore. We send them and pay doctors to detox them. But early on, where there wasn't detox centers, we recommend it. I say we, because everyone in the fellowship helped detox people. Thank God we never had anybody to die. But anyway, what you do is how you detox people. You take them off of the drug of choice. If they were drinking bourbon, you get a bottle of that bourbon and you taper them off. You don't just withhold it from them all at once. And then you give them lots of sugar. Anything with sugar. This is the old timer one. Y'all don't need to learn how to detox people. I'm going to get off of that. But what would happen is a lot of times alcoholics would substitute alcohol for food, and they'd come back by the Serenity House in 2 or 3 months, and my God, they would have gained 20 or 30 pounds. And I would say, what's happened? Well, I got sober and I started eating, So another thing about this part 3 of how you recover from how you get into emotional sobriety is resentment. Now, if you are really working the steps, you're going to keep those resentments intact, because how you're going to do that, you take an inventory the first time and you look at all those resentments. And then, and there's another part, Bill tricked all of us. He was really tricked us when he wrote the steps. And, he just said, put down all your resentments. For anybody that you resent all of your life, you just write them down here. Write them down on this list, and what they did to you. Bless your heart, write it all out. What they did to you. He tricked us. Because you go down to step 8, and then he says, that resentment list that you made back in step 4, well, pull that out. And those are the people you get to go make amends to. That sucker, he really did. No, I'm joking. I think the 12 steps was divinely inspired by God. And how, Bill laid it out, how we could write down all our resentments, what we resent about other people and what they did to us. Bless our hearts. But then there's another column over there that we have to look at the part that we played in that. And it's always the part that we played. So resentments began in, if you don't get into second stage recovery, if you're early in the program, what will happen is those resentments will rear their ugly heads. They will come back and you'll think, God, I thought I dealt with that. But if you're not in good emotional recovery, you will feed off of those old resentments. So another thing is feelings. I mean, you'll begin to feel, if you're not in good sobriety, emotional sobriety, you feel empty. It's sometimes like there's not anything here. It's like a vacant building. And then, you just feel like numb on the inside. And if you're not careful, because what's missing is the joy of recovery. And that if you don't get into the joy of recovery in second stage recovery, you will pick up again. Why not? If you never get happy in recovery, if your life does not get better, and the first stage, and that is getting clean and sober, if life doesn't get better, why wouldn't you want to drink? But I'm not giving you permission to do that. But life has to change. You've got to want a life. But what happens is the signs that we need second stage recovery is what I'm talking about now, because those resentments come back, those feelings of being empty come on us, that dependence on others show up. We get dependent on other people to make us happy, to do what we want them to do our bidding for us. We could get to be, not the most pleasant people in the world to live with in early sobriety, and that's sobriety from the food and codependency as well as drugs and alcohol. So what we do then is we will begin to get into all those old patterns that we had when we were using, without using. Those old patterns being people pleasing. We might get into people pleasing, wanting to, make ourselves feel good by saying yes to everything. Or we'll do the reverse. We'll isolate. A man or person all wrapped up in themselves makes a very poor package. Think about that. A person all wrapped up in themselves makes a poor package. So if you start isolating and you're just there by yourself, bless your heart, and you just are licking your own wounds and no one comes to see you and no one calls you, that is BS. Get out of yourself, pick up the phone, call somebody, go to a meeting, go do something for someone else. If you want to have a really good second stage emotional recovery, get out of yourself and go do something for someone else. Or you can get into overworking, and I have seen this over and over with newcomers, particularly your male alcoholics. I've seen it in working with them where they, feel like that they're behind because of their addiction, and women can do this too. Well, I haven't been a good mother, so I've got to do this, and this. Or the man, or, you're on your job, you will begin to overwork and to overgive and, to kind of make up for when you were using. And that is not second stage recovery. Second stage recovery is feeling that feeling of being free. That's what second stage recovery is being free. And if you want to go help people, you go help people. But if you don't have to feel guilty about it. It's about taking care of yourself without this is where that emotional eating can come in. That's where the overspending. because that hole in the soul has not been filled. If you're not filling it with your primary substance, that hole in your soul is going to be there. So another thing that is very prevalent if we don't get into second stage recovery is, and it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out, and that's relapse. If you don't move beyond just being early stage recovery, and I've seen people 10 years in the program still in early stage, still in our, barely making it, barely not, I'll tell you folks, the program is designed, it is a way to live life on life's terms. And that's what emotional sobriety is. It's about giving us a way to live. So, what is the answer? One of the things that is, how do we build emotional sobriety? You want me to tell you how you do that? You dig deeper into the steps. I've already mentioned it, but particularly step 10. And, we were taught, or I was taught early on, that step 10, you take it at night, you review your day, you do an inventory, and you see if you have any amends to make. And if you do, if you, did something during the day that you don't feel proud of and you feel like that you owe amends to someone, go make those amends as soon as you can the next day, quickly. But there's much more to step 10 than just taking an inventory. Step 10 is doing the first 9 steps over every day. I love to teach step 10 because step 10, when you're in the midst of a problem, you stop and you do a spot check inventory. That's what, the 12 and 12 says. That's what step 10 is. You do a spot check inventory of the moment. And then you do step 1. What is the problem here? What is my problem that I have a problem and I am allowed it? Step 1 is I have a problem and that it is affecting my entire life. That's what step 1 is. And step 2 is finding a power, enlisting the aid of a power greater than yourselves. So, immediately, if you really want to be in recovery, when you've got a problem and you're irritable and restless and discontented, stop in the midst of it and say, God, invite God into it. God, help me to see my part in this situation. That's step 2. And then step 3 is action. It's the first action. You decide, do you want to stay in the problem? And God will let you stay in it and water in it all you want to. And he will not jerk you out of there unless you want him to. Step 3 is making a decision. Do you want to stay in the problem or do you want to go toward the solution? If you want to go into the solution, immediately step 4 is taking an inventory, looking at the part that you played in that situation. This is what second stage recovery is, folks. It's not, you're not going to go through life and not have problems and not have conflict with family members or people you work with or people on the street or neighbors. But if you want to be in recovery, you stop and do a good 10th step, and part of that is doing a quick step 4 and seeing what is your part in this. That's all any of us can change is our part. And sometimes our part is not as great as their part. But you don't look at that. You look at what have I done to contribute to this situation. That's what step 4 is, looking at your character defects. And then number 5, you just pick up that phone, immediately call a sponsor and say, well, I'm back into it. This is what I'm back into. And they'll listen to you and, help you see the character defect that you're dealing with. And you do 6 and 7 and then step 8. If you haven't done anything to upset someone, if it's of a morning and you're doing this, or at night, if you haven't done anything to upset anyone, you don't have any amends to make. That's what step 8 is. You do not have to, make a list of people you've harmed. But if you have done harm for people that day, make a list, get up the next morning, do step 9, go make amends to them. And then step 10 is to continue throughout the day to look at our behavior. So, all right, deeper steps. I get off on the steps. I love the steps. So step 2, the second part of how to build emotional sobriety is learn that it's okay to have feelings, and sometimes you just need to sit with them. Sit with your feelings. Your feelings can tell you something about yourself. If you're sad, look at why you're sad. Maybe you've isolated yourself away from everybody and you don't ever talk to anyone. Maybe, whatever. Sit with your feelings. Feelings are not facts. Feelings are not going to kill you, but not feeling them well. And emotional sobriety is being willing to feel your feelings. Emotions are like a wave in the ocean. They come in, they rush in, a feeling will rush in, and then it peaks. You've seen these waves that come in and go all the way up, and then they come all the way down, and they subside. That's how feelings are. They're not going to stay up here forever unless you let them. If you want to stay up there and feel, bad about yourself and your family or your kids or your parents or your neighbors, well, keep doing it. And you're going to keep on doing what you've always done. You're always going to get what you've always got. If you want to be miserable, keep doing the things to be miserable. But if you want to live a better life, make some changes. So learn to sit with the feelings. And then let go of emotional dependence. Detach with love. If you're all wound up in someone else and their feelings and what they ought to do or their behavior, you got your problem there. And it's called codependency. Can you hear me? It's codependency at the max. If you're worrying more about what someone else is doing and how it's affecting you, you need to get off of that and get on to something that's your own business. Mind your own business. If you're minding your own business, you're going to be very busy. You're going to be very busy. You're going to be very busy just loving to live life. There's so much to do with and you learn to detach with love. That's the first thing that I learned in Al-Anon, is to detach with love. I wanted to detach with hate. Well, look what they've done to me. It doesn't work like that. It's detached with love. Love the person, place, or thing that has hurt you. That's what true love is to love and detach with love and go on about your business and no longer take hostage and don't look for other people to approve of your moods or give you approval. I don't need to bank what my feelings are on. If I banked my feelings and my well-being and my emotional sobriety on how much interaction I have with my son, now I'll tell you, I love and adore my son. I love him, love him, love him. I was thinking about him this morning. I always kind of think about him when school starts because, he did everything with gusto and, whether it was football or whatever, he put his heart into it. That's why he's a very, very wealthy man today, and he's a very busy man. And so I could sit around and moan and groan about how I never hear from Kelly. Kelly didn't come to see me, and every once in a while I'll say that, and I just hate hearing myself say that, because it just sounds so pitiful. All I have to do is pick up the phone and call him. He'd be glad to hear from me. You know, right now he's up. He's taken one of his daughters and her family. They're up at the Hamptons having a wonderful vacation because he can. He's got the money. He can do anything he wants to do and do with his children. Is he up there thinking about me? Yes, he is in some ways because he's sending me pictures. That's how I know that he's thinking about me. You know, but if I sit around and, moan and groan about he never comes to see me, that is not emotional sobriety, folks. That is setting myself up for relapse is what it is. When you feel sorry for yourself, you're setting yourself up for relapse. It's the poor me's. Poor me, poor me, pour me another drink. Resentment is a pretty clean-cut feeling. Resentment. Someone did something to you and it just bothers you. And you have a bad feeling about it. And if you work on that resentment and clean that mess up and not at what we usually do, we get mad at someone. And then we may go over, and blow up at that person, and give them a piece of our mind. So we've got, so we have a resentment. And now once we get back home after we've blown up at that person, we get to thinking, oh my God, why did I do that? And then we get to resenting ourselves. So we had a resentment toward them. Now we've got a self-resentment. We're mad at ourselves. Do y'all ever do that? It's your behavior. Then we're mad at ourselves. And then we go the step farther. Well, after all, they have been doing me bad all my life. And we immediately go from self-resentment to self-pity. And once you reach that self-pity stage, that is the worst point that an addict can get. Because when you start feeling sorry for yourself, the next thing is pour me, pour me, pour me another drink, pour me another milkshake. Give me something to ease this pain. So, emotional sobriety is about staying out of other people's business. We all have enough. If you just take care of your side of the sidewalk, you'd be busy all the time, So, and that goes for me too. I don't need to worry about my son not coming to see me all the time. You know what? I do, and I do this. When I get to really want to see Kelly, Kelly retired 10 years ago, and he traveled the world. He got tired of doing that, so he's back in business full time, and he's busy building 2 or 3 more businesses. But if I want to see, when I get ready to see Kelly, you know what I have to do? All I have to do is I pick up the phone, and I say, okay, son, I need to see you. Do you want me to come see you at the office, or are you going to come see me? He said, okay, I'll be out there in the morning, or I'll be out there tonight. All I have to say, you want me to come see you, or are you going to come see me? Instead of sitting here and feeling sorry for myself, just say, okay, I need to see you. And I don't need to see him for a long time. Just drop by, and he will. So it's on me to do that. It's not on him. It's on me to do that. He's got kids and grandkids and businesses and a new wife. I'm way down there on his list, which is a good thing. Okay, so let go of emotional dependence on anyone, and one thing is detach with love and no longer take hostages. Do not take hostages. Let go of people. People are going to either love us or not, and they're going to love us warts and all. If they don't love you the way you are, why would you want to, be around them? If you have to change who you are in order to please them. So another thing is to step out, stop out. What did I write here? Oh, I know what I wrote. Stop giving your power away. You know what I'm talking about? Codependents give their power away. And how they do that is by people pleasing. They want to please people. They don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. You stay in your own hula hoop, and you cannot hurt someone's feelings without their permission. You might say something that bothers someone, and you know how you deal with that? You go to that person. You go to that person and you talk about it. You don't go to someone else and talk about it, and someone else and someone else, because every time you tell the story, it gets bigger. If you have conflict with someone, go to that person individually and get to the bottom of what it is. Because you can't get to a solution. You can't change a problem till you get to the core of the problem and then find a solution. So stop giving your power away. And then number 4 is build emotional tools. Emotional tools are, guess what? It's just so easy. And this is to breathe. Stop and take deep breaths. Do meditation. Go do meditation with my friend Jeff. It is breathing, taking deep breaths that can reset yourself, that you can reset your emotional clock. These are emotional tools that you can use. When you've got your pennies in a wad about what somebody else has done, you're giving them too much power. Just breathe through it. Ground yourself, and get somewhere where you, I don't like this statement, is when people say, I don't feel safe here. What does that mean, that you don't feel safe? Do you feel like somebody's going to come in and shoot you? Now, that is not feeling safe. But when you're somewhere in a group or something and say, I don't feel safe here, I hate for people to, I have no patience for it. I hear them say that. The safety is created within inside of you. No one can create safety for you. It is inside of you. You feeling safe. And if you're somewhere where you don't feel safe and good, remove yourself from it. It's not up to other people to take care of you. Take care of yourself. So, fear, get out of your self-centered fear. If you're all, in fear of, when we're in fear, the only thing that we're fear of the future. We're never fear of the present unless it's coming up a cloud. Maybe the weather says a tornado's coming. That's healthy fear. Go to the storm cellar. If you find one, get yourself in a safe place. Healthy fear is stop at that stop sign, and then you won't be run over. Healthy fear, if the house is on fire, get out of the burning house. But when you live in fear, you are looking outside yourself for something to make you feel bad about yourself. And fear is always in the future. It's never about the present unless there's danger. Unless there's danger. If you're somewhere where you don't feel safe, it's not about the other people changing anything to make you feel safe. That safeness is going to have to come from within you and the God of your understanding. That's what emotional sobriety is you create your own safety. And if you've got yourself somewhere, we were on a vacation. I went to speak in D.C. and then went on vacation. We were in Savannah, and we'd gone to this ghost thing at night, late at night, and we were already kind of scared, and we were down in not the best part of Savannah. I mean, it's a tourist part, but it was midnight, and 2 women. Now, they would not get me. If they got me, they wouldn't keep me long, but they would get the woman that was with me because she's real cute. But anyway, we were in the midst of that kind of bad part of town, and then we called an Uber, is that how you say it? And, I always feel safe when I call them. It's like calling your son-in-law or your brother-in-law or somebody to come give you a lift, to give you a ride. I mean, I feel safe when I call those places. But here came this guy in this awful looking car, beat up car. And we got in, and he was a different race than me. It doesn't make any difference what the race was. He weighed probably 300 or 400 pounds, had this long hair. He looked like a drug dealer, had tattoos on him, had piercings, and we climbed in there and let him take us back to the hotel. But I mean, I'm saying that to say, that we might have had a little healthy fear. We had as a plan of action, because when you ride one of those Ubers, they do kind of keep you safe. You can call them, they'll call the police. Anyway, healthy fear is there is danger approaching. And, unhealthy fear is you create it in your mind. And it's all about the future. Oh my God, I don't have money for this, I don't have money for that. Finances are a reality. Don't let them eat you up alive. Stay in the moment and ask yourself, what is so bad, awful, and wrong this moment, right this moment? That's what emotional sobriety is learning to live in the moment. And then in those moments, get out of yourself, go do something for someone else. Do good service work at a 12-step program, or just with neighbors, just anything to get out of yourself and do something for someone else. And then the payoff for emotional sobriety, you know what the payoff is? You get to feel serene, you get to feel calm, you get to feel almost like you're back a young person again. Addictions makes old people out of us. It ages us. Any addiction ages us. Second stage recovery, I mean, it's almost like we go backwards. We get young again. We can get young. Now you look in the mirror and it's kind of contradictory, but you can feel young on the inside. This is an inside job. And guess what? When you do that, and you do any of the things that I'm talking about, and if you have problems, look at them as challenges, not a crisis. If you have a problem, look at it as a challenge. We've got a problem here. We've got to solve it. And always add some humor in this. Find something to laugh about. Make sure you're around somebody that has a good sense of humor. And that's what, surround yourself with people that are of like kind, that want to laugh and enjoy life. And that's what I mean. What I'm going to say is, when we do these things, we experience joy. Joy, joy. In the Bible, that is the ultimate of, what is that? It's about God's grace. Joy is about God's grace. And it's okay to feel joy and relief in the freedom of being that we're no longer using a substance. Every day, thank God for that, physical recovery. Do not discount your physical recovery. That is a gift from God. Do not throw it back up in his face. Physical recovery is, if you don't have physical recovery, you'll never find emotional recovery. But once you start finding emotional recovery, you take care of it. Take care of it. It is a blessing. And what emotional sobriety is freedom, freedom from the inside out. That's what emotional recovery is freedom from the inside out, not the outside in. Substance abuse is from finding freedom from the outside in, where we put something inside ourselves to make ourselves feel better. emotional recovery starts from it's inside ourselves, and that is a God deal. Regardless of how we look at it, it is a God deal. We are God's people, and we're His children, and He wants the very best for us.